the why. Why you? Why does Port Houston want to do business with you and your company? Why would they be interested in changing vendors if there's a current vendor? Why would they be interested in taking a risk in choosing your company? This is what you really need to make sure that you are able to articulate. And it's often called a value proposition or an elevator speech or a business pitch. And Susan and I are going to be back in 2 weeks, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about your business pitch and the various types of business pitches. It's also used in your capability statement. And this is yet another example of where your capability statement kind of serves as this foundation for your company. Like we said when we started, it's your company's resume. If I have a question, or if a team member has a question, they can go to the capability statement and know about maybe a few other things about the company or what your true value proposition is. So you need to have a value proposition. And this is not a big old long dissertation about your company. This is the value that you provide. How are you different from your competition? And I love value propositions because this is a prime opportunity for you to really communicate the passion that you have for solving people's problems, the passion of why you made the leap into entrepreneurship, the passion of why you are maybe a co-owner or a part of an amazing company that is doing amazing things and making a difference in people's lives. And so here's an example of a value proposition. And it's chunked into 3 different parts, right? And so when you're reading it, it's not just this big sea of words. There's 3 very distinct chunks to it. It tells you about the type of consulting firm in it. It tells you about the services that they provide. And then it tells you a little bit about what they do. They solve complex problems in a meaningful and cost-efficient way. Super summarize this. What is a value proposition? And it's the why us, right? What does your company do? And when you're doing your value proposition, if you go and look at your competitor's website, or you find your competitor when you look them up, maybe in the Port vendor database or City of Houston database, go to their website. And if you are saying the same exact thing in the same exact words as your competition, it's not a value proposition. If that happens, I encourage you to take a step back and really think about the benefits and advantages that only you and your company provides, not your features, right? Your features are your widgets, your features are the products. How are you, your products, and your services providing the best solution to Port Houston, or the best, most creative and innovative solutions to other government agencies? So how do you craft it? Well, first, you've got to know who your competitors are, why your potential client should use you instead of their competition. And here's a few statements that I like to use as reflection points. Depending on who your customers are, call them up, right? And let them know, hey, I'm working on my capability statement. I'm working on some marketing materials for my company. Do you have 5 minutes of your time? And you can say, what was the one thing that surprised you that my business does? They'll tell you, right? And when a client works with me, or when they work with my company, they discover what, right? Or when they hire us, they get blank, right? They hire you for landscape services, but in addition, they get X, Y, and Z. Or they hired you to do some marketing. Then what else did they get? And this is one of my favorite things that I like to do in a group with my team members, is how do we go above and beyond when it comes to, and you'd be surprised on what feedback your team members give you on how they go above and beyond to make your customers and your clients happy. Because when you have happy employees, you're going to have happy customers. When you have happy customers, you're going to get more business, and everyone wins. We talked about the value that you bring, but now we're also going to talk about how do you mitigate risk, right? How are some ways that you mitigate risk from Port Houston or any other agency going from a different company to you and using you for the first time. And the most common way and proactive way to minimize and mitigate risk is through insurance. So think about the types of insurance coverage that you have right now with your company. And that's one of the category areas here on your worksheet to fill out. If you don't have any insurance, then you should probably contact an insurance broker. If you need one, let us know. There's a couple of different ones that we can recommend that specialize in small businesses. But I think it's also important on your victory plan to talk to the buyer at Port Houston who procures your products and services and ask them what the insurance requirements are. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $2 million, and let's just for example purposes say it's $2 million and you only have $1 million. Well, don't go and run right now and increase your insurance policy until you get the contract, right? Or until you bid on that contract, because then you're going to have additional expenses that you don't need right now. But you want to make sure that you have the proper insurance coverage. And so there's different types of insurance that help you mitigate your risk. And here's 3 common ones. You've got your general liability, your professional liability, and workers' comp. And not every type of product and service will have all of these different insurances. How do I know, Julie, what my insurance is, or how do I even figure it out? If you currently have an insurance broker or insurance with someone, call them up and ask them to send you your certificate of insurance or your LOI. Don't ask for your entire policy, because that's going to be a big old thing that's going to be huge, right? 400 or 500 pieces of paper. You will need that, but you don't need that right now, not for this. So your LOI or your certificate of liability insurance tells you a couple of different things. It tells you who your insurance company is and your different types of insurance that you currently have. So if it's listed on your certificate of liability insurance, this is your current coverage. So I've got highlighted here your general liability insurance, and this is commercial general liability. This is business insurance. Insurance that covers things that your business does. If you are in a service such as construction or landscaping or delivery or courier or transportation, you're probably going to need some auto insurance, some auto liability, right? So that's there. If you're providing professional services and you are not going on site, then you may not need that. Your overall umbrella covers an overall umbrella, right? So that's kind of everything else. Employer's liability, so that's workers' comp, right? So if a worker gets hurt on a job, that is your workers' compensation. Errors and omissions, or what's also commonly called as professional liability. Once again, it depends on the types of products and services that you provide. When I had my marketing agency, we had to have professional liability insurance. Architects, engineers, those types of professional services are also required to have professional liability. What we are seeing more often than not is cyber insurance. And so if you are dealing with files going back and forth or anything else, technology, infrastructure, technology related activities, we are seeing in more opportunities, RFPs, RFQs, that agencies are requiring cyber insurance. So maybe you're working on your 2022 budgets, add these types of things as your task item to just have a conversation with your insurance broker so you know what types of amounts and numbers you need to budget for. If you're in construction, then you might also need to be bonded. And that depends on the agency. It also depends on the prime contractor that you're working with. Some prime contractors require subs to have some level of bonding. Some prime contractors do not. Some agencies require the prime as well as the subs to be bonded. It really depends. So you might want to, if you're in construction or construction related services, add that to your victory plan for when you're having your conversation with your Port Houston buyer. References. References are so critical in this space. You're going to need references. If you have room on your capability statement, you'll need references to put in your vendor profile. You're going to need references when you complete an RFP or an RFQ. That's a request for proposal or a request for qualifications. And these are references. These references are people who you have done business with, people that you have performed these similar types of services. So we recommend to have at least 3 references at all times. Well, how do you get a reference or a testimonial or even a reference letter? Well, first, you've got to ask for it. And this is really important. I think a lot of people miss this point. If you don't ask for it, then they may or may not give it to you. So you need to make sure to give that person the opportunity to give you permission to list them as a reference. And you need to make sure that they're happy. So before you call that person up or you send them an email, were they happy? Have you maybe worked on 1 or more projects together? Is this a similar type of project that I'm going after, or the similar types of projects that I want to continue to pursue with my company, right? Think back to your NAICS codes, think back to the opportunities in the workspace. Look back in your business plan and your business strategy and where you want to grow your company and grow your capacity. That makes sense? Great. Let's send him an email, or let's do something that's really old-fashioned and pick up the phone. Did you leave the project on good terms? And would they use you again? And a common misconception, people are like, oh, well, I'm not done with the project. I'm only two or 3 months in on a 1-year project. That is still a valid reference. They can talk about project ramp up. They can talk about project kickoff. They can talk about invoicing. They can talk about how you're communicating with them. So there's lots of great things that a current client can give you as a reference. So when you're asking for a reference, be as specific as possible. Here's a list of some things, some common things, and maybe this goes back to your victory plan on things that you can think about asking those references for. So if we go back to our 3 references, then maybe 1 reference, I'm going to ask George, hey, George, we worked on that project 2 years ago. Would you be comfortable being a reference for me in regards to our quality of work and as well as that we completed the project on schedule and within budget? Great, perfect. So George now knows, and he can think and go, that's right, they did do a really good job, and it rained 5 times, within that 1 week, but man, they worked overnights and weekends or whatever. But you know what? They delivered on time, right? So you were really helping both parties. It's really making you think about, all right, what are some very specific things that I would like for them to talk about? But then also you're making it so much easier for that reference, for that person to talk and say great things about you. You are not coaching them. You are not baiting them. You're asking them, would you be comfortable talking about those things? If they're not, they'll let you know and they'll respond back. So like I said, here's a list of some things, but if there are some other great things that are specific, the more specific you are in a reference, the better the reference is going to be. So we sent the email or we had a phone call with that reference and they say, yes, great, I'm comfortable talking about how you guys communicated and how wonderful you were with executing everything on schedule. You need to make sure to show your appreciation and then just remind them of where you're going to list them as a reference, right? So start with gratitude and appreciation. Thanks for your continued business and support. Let them know that we're currently pursuing work with government entities, right? Such as Port Houston, such as Houston Community College, such as TxDOT or what have you. If you have specifics, if not, you can leave it fairly general. And then let them know that we went ahead and we put their name and number as a reference on their capability, on your capability statement. So when they look at their phone and they see a strange number, they're more likely to pick it up, right? I had a company that listed us as a reference for HISD. I don't have any kids that go to HISD, but when I saw that number, I was like, oh wait, I've got to pick up that phone because they listed us as a reference. All right.